In this video, we are going to do a simple material requirement planning using SAP. We are going to use a finished goods deluxe touring bike DXTR, whose planning strategy is make to stock. DXTR has components that can be seen in the bill of materials. We will be observing one of those components, which is brake kit. Let us first check the material master of DXTR and ensure that the planning strategy is make to stock and the MRP type is maintained correctly. Go to the material master. Normally, we'll not need to change anything, so we're just going to display. Our material is DXTR. Select all the views. So we don't need to see all the views. We will just focus on the material requirement planning views, and we'll be running the MRP for the plant DL00, which is Dallas plant. And we see that the MRP type is PD, which has been maintained correctly. The lot sizing procedure is EX, which is also maintained correctly. Let us go to MRP2 view. The procurement type should be X, which means that DXTR can be both in-house manufactured or procured externally. Though DXTR being a finished goods, most cases will be producing in-house. We'll go to the MRP3 view, and the strategy group is maintained as 10, which is a make to stock production. This simple MRP run we are going to do for make to stock production. Let us now look at the bill of material of DXTR. Again, we don't need to make any change. We'll just observe the components. We'll be observing after the MRP run only one of the components, which is BRKT. Though the effect of MRP run will be similar for all the components, for the simplicity of the exercise, we'll focus only on BRKT and assume that the same principles will apply for other components as well. For seeing the bill of material, we need to go to production because bill of material is a part of production. We'll go to the production master data, and here you see the bill of material. There are various types of bill of materials. We'll be focusing on what is called the material bill of materials, which is used for production. Will not change anything, we'll just display. Bill of material is always defined against the finished goods. So the finished goods here is DXTR. There are different uses of bill of material. The one that we will be using here is for plant DL00. We will see the bill of material for a required quantity of 1, which means that the data will be shown for the components that were required for making 1 unit of DXTR. Press enter, and we see the components. So it says that for 1 unit of DXTR, 2 units of tooling aluminum wheel assembly is required. Similarly, 1 unit of TRFR are required. And if you go down, you see the BRKT component over here, which says that 1 unit of DXTR requires 1 unit of BRKT. This number is important because once we run the MRP and we need to calculate the quantities to check that the MRP has been run correctly, we need to know that 1 unit of DXTR requires 1 unit of BRKT. This is a multi-level bill of material, which means that there may be components below each of these components, and we can see that in different bill of material reports. One of the reports that can be seen is over here. If you go to reporting, if you go to bomb explosion for the material bomb, if you see the multi-level bomb, you can see all the components that are there for DXTR broken level by level. So here, if we just mention the BOM application to the production, is PP01, and the required quantity is 1. Execute this. We see that the first level components are indicated by .1, so TRWA and TRFR, DGM, and our BRKT is over there, all are .1. And the .2 means the components that are below TRW. That is, TRW in turn consists of touring tire, touring tube, etc. So this is how the multi-level bill of material is shown over here. There are other reports that show the similar data in a different format. For example, if you go to BOM level by level, the same report can be seen in a little slightly different format. So here it shows the first level components together, all the level 1 components are together, and then it shows the components for TRWA, which has a second level component. And there is one more report which just gives the list of components without any hierarchy, which is called the summarized bill of material. So this shows all the components that will be required. So you can see lock washer is required 4 units because 1 unit of DXTR requires 2 units of TRWA, and 1 unit of TRWA requires 2 units of lock washer. So it is a list of materials without any hierarchy. So this is just for information about the components that will be required to make DXTR. The next important report that we are going to see is called the stock requirement list, which basically provides the current demand and supply situation. Remember, in an MRP, there are certain demand elements in the system which create demand on the production and procurement system, which are matched by supply elements which try to meet the demand. Examples of supply elements are stock, purchase requisition, purchase order, production order, etc. Examples of demand element are planned order, sales order, safety stock, etc. Demand elements are indicated by minus in SAP and supply elements are indicated by plus. In a balanced system, the demand element will be equal to the supply element. However, if the demand is more than the supply, then the net demand will be higher and the stock requirement list will show a net negative value. An MRP run will try to balance the demand and supply and bring it to 0. However, if there is a net supply, then the MRP run will not take away the supply, because if the purchase order is already out or if the stock is already available in the warehouse, the MRP run cannot take it out. So if the supply is more than the demand, even after the MRP run, the supply will show as excess. So after the MRP run, the stock requirement list net result will be either 0 or greater than 0. It can never be negative. So let us see how a stock requirement list looks like and try to read the stock requirement list. We will see the stock requirement list for the XTR and one of the components BRK. Same stock requirement list is available for all the components, but for analysis, we'll take only one component. Stock requirement list is a part of production. So we'll go to production and it is part of MRP, so report under MRP. So under MRP, you see evaluations. Under evaluation, this is where you see the stock requirement list. So we'll see the stock requirement list of DXTR first, and then we'll see the stock requirement list of BRKT. So DXTR 1000 For the plant DL00, you may not enter the MRP area, it will automatically take and continue, and let us see how the stock requirement list looks like. So this is the format of the report. So let us first understand what does this report mean. You see the first column is date. The date is the date at which the demand is generated, demand needs to be fulfilled, or the supply is fulfilled, depending on whether the element is a demand element or a supply element. So the first row says the MRP element is the type of MRP element, in the sense that it's either a demand element or a supply element. So in this first row, it is a stock, and it says that the available quantity is 450. That means this is the stock available in hand. You can reconfirm this through the stock overview, which you can see in another report. So we can open a new session and we can see the stock overview of the XPR, which is another report which provides the present stock in hand and validate that actually it's 450 or not. So go to logistics. It's a part of materials management because it's all about stock, materials management, and under materials management is a part of inventory management. And it's a report, so we can go to environment and the stock, we see the stock overview. And let's see for DX here, and we'll remove the plant here because we want to see the stock of the entire system, including the company codes. If we execute, we see the total stock of DX here available. Now you can see here that the stock has different types. One is called unrestricted use. That means this is the stock that can be used for any purpose. For example, production, sales, etc., depending on the type of material. There is no restriction on the stock. On the other hand, if there is any stock in quality inspection, there could have been restrictions that this stock cannot be used for sale or for production. There's something called reserve stock. In case this particular stock is reserved against a particular order, which can be a sales order or a production order, then it appears in the reserve stock. However, remember the reserve stock is only a part of unrestricted stock. That means the total stock is not the reserve stock plus unrestricted stock. The total stock is always unrestricted stock, out of which some part will be reserved. In our case, there's a finished goods, so there's nothing that is reserved. We can ignore the other for this particular exercise. If you are interested to know what is on order stock, you can see the procure to pay process. It says the total inventory of the exterior in the entire system is 670. Now this is different from 450 that we saw. Why? Because this 670 is not available all in plant DL00. The one that is available in plant DL0 is only 450. Because we are running the MRP for plant DL00, hence it is showing the stock that is available in plant DL0. Where is the remaining stock? You can see where the remaining stock is. 100 units is available in another plant of US00 company code, okay, which is Miami. And then another 120 is available in plant HD00, which is the Heidelberg plant, which is in a different company code, Global Bike Germany. So obviously Germany and US are two different countries. So legal entities will be different, and hence there are two different companies. And that's how the total stock is 670. However, for the MRP run, only 450 will be considered because this is the stock that is available in the plant DL00 where we are running them. That's how you see the stock 450 over here. Stock is a supply element, so that's why it's a plus. Now, you need to read the next line. And the next line says that there's a safety stock of 100. Remember, safety stock is a demand element, unlike stock, which is a supply element. Because safety stock is something that, as management, you are putting a demand on the system to keep an extra stock. So this safety stock is maintained in the material master of the exterior, and because there's a 100 safety stock, Hence, now the cumulative demand and supply becomes 350. So this available quantity column is a cumulative value. So as new rows are added, these values will get added from the previous rows. And the cumulative value will be shown here. The next one is an independent requirement, planned independent requirement. DXTR is a finished product and it is following a make to stock strategy. So when you enter a planned independent requirement, that creates a demand in the system and that will be then netted off against the supply. So previously somebody would have created a planned independent requirement of 2154 and that is how there's now a demand element of 2154 which gets added to 350 and now there is a net demand of 1804. So similarly, the next line item is production order. Production order is supply element. It was created previously. So this is the current state. And there's a production order of 50. Now 1804 plus 50 becomes 1754. 1804 minus plus 50 becomes 1754. So this way you keep on adding cumulatively till you come to the last row, which shows that the net demand and supply position for DXTR as of now. It is right now 0. That means at this point of time, demand and supply are balanced. Let us also see the position of BRKT. So we'll see the stock requirement list of BRKT and see how it looks. We're keeping both the screens open so that we can look at the change simultaneously. MRP, evaluation, stock requirement list. We're now going to check BRKT. Now, BRKT has a total stock of 1943. Again, you can go to the stock overview of BRKT and check whether this is correct or not. This is for plant DL0. There's an order reservation. That means BRKT is reserved against a production order of DXTR. Reservation is a demand element because it's creating a demand on the BRKT. This is 50 minus. So 50 minus plus 19543 now becomes plus 1893. Then there's a dependent requirement of 100. Dependent requirement is a demand of BRKT that is derived from the demand of the DXTR. Because there's a demand of the DXTR, hence there is a demand of BRKT of 100 minus. This has been generated from previous demands of the DXTR. Okay. We will see once we create new demand of the DXTR how this number changes. But as of now, there is 100 demand of the DXTR, so 100 again gets 100 minus is added to 1893 plus and it becomes 1793. So this way it continues. You can see other elements like purchase order item because BRKT is a raw material and hence there can be a purchase order against that. There's a 40, that means there's a supply, and then this also gets added with the supply. So it increases by 40. So like that, if you go down and look at the last row, let's see what is there in the last row. It is 0, which means that the demand and the supply of BRKT is also balanced at this point of time. What we're going to do now is we are going to create an imbalance of demand. That means we are going to add to the demand of DXTR. That will create an imbalance. And then let us see what happens to the stock requirement list. And after that, we're going to run the MRP and again see what happens to the stock requirement list. So let us open a new session so that we keep these two sessions alive and we can see the change. What we're going to do, we're going to add new demand for DXTR. What will be the type of demand? Because DXTR we are following a make to stock strategy. So this type of demand will be a planned independent requirement. It's not a sales order because we are making DXTR and its component based on a plan, not based on a firm order. Go to logistics in order to create the demand. That usually in the industry there's a long process of sales and operations planning. But in this video, since that is not the focus, we are directly entering the plan independent requirement. Go to production and we'll go to production planning, demand management, and in the demand management, we're going to create a plan independent requirement. As I mentioned that in industry, you will not directly usually enter the plan independent requirement. You will go through an elaborate process of sales and operation planning, and the plan independent requirement will be captured from that. But because in this video we're focusing on MRP run, we're directly entering the plan independent requirement in here. So go to plan independent requirement. That has changed because there might be already some requirement. We are just going to change and increase the requirement. So we are going to change the requirement for DXTR, which is the finished goods, because the plan independent requirement is for the finished goods. And here you see for the month of January, there is a demand of 500. I am going to increase this demand for 2000. Assume that there is a revision in plan and the sales guys have come and told that no, we expect more sales this month and let us plan for 1000 rather than 500. And we'll save this demand. Now, once we save this demand, let's see what change we expect in the DXTR stock requirement list. Right now, you see that the independent requirement of 500 minus. But now we know that we have changed this to 1000. So ideally, now the demand and supply imbalance will go away and there will be an excess demand of 500. Let's see what that happens. We just refresh this and we see that now there's a demand of 1000 instead of 500, and hence there is an imbalance of demand or supply. There's an excess of demand or supply. Now this is where the MRP run will help. Once we run the MRP, it should balance the demand and supply and again make it to 0. But before we do that, let us see what change has happened to BRKT. Right now, BRKT is balanced. However, if there is a demand of DXTR, the demand of BRKT also should change. Let us see if it changes. Refresh. But we see that there is no change of BRKT. Why there is no change in BRKT? Because the extra demand of DXTR will not get transferred as a dependent requirement of BRKT till the MRP is run. Only the MRP will be able to see the components of DXTR and transfer the demand of the finished goods to its components as dependent requirement. That is why before the change of, before the MRP run, you will not see any change in the stock requirement list of BRKT, even though you're seeing a change in the stock requirement list of DXTR. And just note some of the other data. The dependent requirement here for BRKT is 400 minus. And let us see if there is any change that happens after we run the MRP. We are now going to run the MRP for DXTR. Now, in organizations, usually you run the MRP for the entire set of finished goods that you are making, and sometimes some consumables as well. And usually that takes some amount of time, though with technology like SAP HANA, this kind of time has drastically reduced. But in this exercise, for demonstration purpose, we are not going to run it for all the materials. We are going to run for only one material DXTR. However, we are going to run for all the components of that one material DXTR. So this type of MRP run is called single item multi-level because it is for one item, but for all the components. So we'll go to the MRP run. This is under production because this is deterministic planning. Under the MRP run, under planning, we'll do not the total planning, which is meant for all the materials, but we'll do for single item multi-level. We are going to do it for DXTR, not BRKT, because that's it, our finished goods. Everything else in this setup will remain unchanged, except the planning mode, change it to 3. This will help to delete the existing planning data and recreate the planning data afresh. And then press enter. When you press enter, it will give you a warning. The warning says that please check your input parameters. The reason such warnings are given is once you run the MRP, especially if you run it for a large number of materials, and as I said, in most cases it will be for the entire set of materials, it is very difficult to trace back any change that you might want to do after this, because it will run for the entire set of materials, it will do the calculations automatically, and it will automatically give you the supply elements. And in fact, that is the purpose for MRP run, because otherwise it will be manually too complex to calculate. Hence, it says that please check the input parameters, but after this, it will be very difficult for you to correct any errors. So for us, it is only one material and we are fairly confident. So we can go ahead and we can just press enter again. Once we press enter, it says that the MRP has been successfully run and it has planned 11 materials. These 11 materials are the XTR and its components. So it has taken all the components of the XTR and the XTR itself and planned for all of that. As I said, that we are going to look at only DXTR and BRKT just to see whether the MRP run has worked as per our expectation. So let us now go to the stock requirement list of DXTR. And now my demand and supply should balance, and this 500 minus should become 0. How? There should be a planned order, either a new planned order, increase in the existing planned order that will balance the extra demand. Right now, you see there's a planned order of 100 and planned order of 400. Let's see if any change happens to all of this. Just refresh. And now you see that this planned order has now become 1000. And this planned order, this independent requirement is 100 minus, and has made some other changes because it will recreate the planning run, and it has done all those calculations internally. You don't have to worry about that. And ultimately, it has given the demand, equated the demand and supply, and the net balance is 0. So the adjustments of the planned orders or any other supply element, or that in the case of BRKT, there may be some dependent requirement. All these adjustments are automatically done by the system, keeping in mind the requirement dates. Let us now go to BRKT and let's see what change that might have happened. First of all, we'll see that before the MRP run, this was 0 because the demand has not been passed. Now the demand will be passed, but again it will be balanced. So after the MRP run, also this should still be 0. However, the individual components should now change because now there will be more dependent requirement coming from the XTR, and that should be balanced by additional supply elements in the form of purchase requisitions. So let us see how it happens. So you see there are some purchase requisitions over here. Some of these might get changed. There is, you see the dependent requirement over here. Some of these might get changed. So let's just refresh. So you see here the dependent requirement has changed over here. This purchase requisition, which is 400, has become 1,400. All these adjustments SAP has automatically done. Now, why SAP added 1,000 to this purchase requisition and not to this purchase requisition? All of this has to do with the dates and the lead time, etc., and whichever is on a first come first serve basis. So it adjusts these purchase requisitions automatically. You need to not worry about it. And at the end of the day, it has balanced the demand and supply and made it 0. So now we know that once you run the MRP, it is going to balance the demand and the supply element. This is the way a simple MRP run works in SAP.